Welcome to Deep Fear, where your darkest nightmares turn real. Tonight's story may just keep you awake, so let's start the video. And don't forget to subscribe. It was supposed to be a scenic detour. Jacob had been driving from Chicago to Denver, a solo road trip meant to clear his head after a brutal breakup and months of burnout from work. He took back roads through Illinois and into Iowa, avoiding the interstates, enjoying the quiet. Somewhere outside of Des Moines, a wrong turn, followed by a storm, led him deep into the countryside and deeper into trouble. His GPS died 2 hours earlier. No signal. His phone battery was down to 6%. Rain lashed the windshield like angry nails. He could barely see 10 feet ahead through the foggy glass. The wipers screeched like they were made of bones. That's when he saw the sign. It was crooked and old, nearly overtaken by ivy. A single wooden arrow pointed down a narrow gravel road. Jacob almost passed it, but lightning cracked so violently behind him that it lit the road white. Instinctively, he turned down the path, tires crunching gravel. He figured the village might have a gas station, or at least somewhere to wait out the storm. It didn't. Daggers Hollow was strange. There was no gas station, no cars, no lights in the windows. Just a single winding street lined with old wooden houses, most with boarded windows and crooked roofs. The trees that surrounded the village grew too tall and too close, their branches clawing over the rooftops like bony hands. Jacob pulled his car to a stop outside a stone church. The sign above the rusted gate read, St. Amsel's Parish, founded 1823. Let the bells guide you home. The word sent a chill down his spine. The whole place looked like something out of a painting or a nightmare. The rain intensified. Jacob stepped out, covering his head with his jacket, and ran up the church steps. The heavy wooden doors were slightly ajar. He knocked. No answer. Inside, the air was cold and stale. Rows of wooden pews faced a cracked altar, and cobwebs danced from the rafters. But it was dry. Jacob walked in cautiously, calling out, "Hello? Anyone here?" Nothing. Then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned fast, but no one was there, just the open doors creaking in the wind. Jacob stayed in the church as night fell. There was no cell signal, no signs of life outside. He considered knocking on some house doors, but something about the place made him hesitate. It wasn't just abandoned, it was waiting. Around 10 p.m., just as Jacob was dozing off in one of the pews, the church bell rang. 1, 2, 3 times. It echoed through the chapel like thunder. Jacob jolted upright. No one had entered. He hadn't seen a rope or mechanism inside the church. And yet, the bell had definitely rung from the tower overhead. He stepped outside into the rain and looked up. The tower's shutters were closed. Suddenly, a woman's voice startled him. "You shouldn't be here after dark." Jacob turned. A figure stood just beyond the gate, an elderly woman wrapped in a soaked shawl. "You're not from here," she said. "Number I got lost," Jacob explained. "I was hoping this town had... You need to leave before sunrise, before it finds you." "Before what finds me?" The woman didn't answer. She just turned and walked into the fog. The next morning, Jacob awoke to the sound of distant shouting. It was the first time he'd heard more than one voice in the town. He rushed outside and followed the noise to the village square. A group of about 10 people stood in a circle. They were dirty, tired-looking, some barefoot, some with tools like sickles and brooms in hand. A younger woman with red hair sobbed uncontrollably. "He was just a boy!" she screamed. Jacob edged closer and heard murmurs. "The bell rang. 3rd time this month. It took another..." Someone noticed Jacob. "Who's he?" a tall man growled. "He wasn't here before." The red-haired woman turned to him, grief and rage in her eyes. "Did you bring it with you?" Jacob backed up. "I don't know what you're talking about. I got caught in the storm. I didn't even know this town existed." Silence. Then the man spoke again. "You stayed in the church, didn't you?" Jacob nodded slowly. More silence. Finally, a thin, older man stepped forward. "Then it knows you now, and it'll want you next." They didn't try to stop him from leaving. That unsettled Jacob the most. The villagers, roughly 10 of them, just stared as he walked backward from the square, his shoes crunching on the wet gravel. No one tried to explain. No one offered help. Back at the church, Jacob grabbed his keys and tried to start the car. It sputtered, clicked, then died. The battery was dead. "Of course," he muttered, kicking the tire. He opened the hood out of instinct, though he had no idea what he was doing. That's when he noticed the wires, cut cleanly near the battery. He looked around. No one in sight. The feeling of being watched gnawed at his spine. That evening, as the sun began to sink behind the trees, Jacob tried knocking on a few houses. He found most of them empty, sealed up from the inside with heavy wooden beams. He did manage to find the old woman again, the one who had warned him. She lived in a crooked house with thick curtains and herbs hanging from the porch. "You came back," she said, opening the door just a crack. "I never left," he said, voice low. "Someone cut my car wires. I need to get out of here, please." She hesitated, then opened the door wider. Inside, the house was dusty but warm. Candles flickered beside jars of dried plants. Old photographs lined the walls, and all of them had something odd in common. The church bell tower was blurred in every image. "You've been marked," she said. "By what?" "The thing that lives in the tower. It only rings the bell for those it chooses." She introduced herself as Miriam. She had lived in Dagger's Hollow for 72 years and claimed her family had been there since the town's founding. "You heard it last night, didn't you?" she asked. Jacob nodded. 3 times. She paled. 3 tolls mean it's looking for a vessel, someone new. Miriam explained that the bell had been installed in 1823, forged by a blacksmith who died under mysterious circumstances days after finishing it. From the beginning, the bell rang without wind or rope. Every few months, a child or traveler would go missing. The villagers called it the tolling curse. They tried removing the bell in 1890. It killed 3 men. They boarded up the tower, sealed the church. Still, it rang. And every time it did, someone vanished. Without blood, without sound, without a trace. "It doesn't kill," Miriam whispered. "It takes. It erases." Jacob's desperation turned to panic. "Has no one ever escaped this?" he asked. Miriam didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a faded black and white photo from the 1950s. "That was my brother, James," she said. "He was marked, like you. He ran into the woods the night after the tolls rang." Jacob looked at the photo. A smiling boy around 16. "What happened?" "No one remembers him now," she said, eyes wet. "Not even my mother. But I do, because I wrote his name in a book. I write down the names of all the ones taken, to prove they existed." She handed him a cracked, leather-bound notebook. Dozens of names, handwritten, some with dates, others just Traveler, June 12, 1969. Visitor in blue car, October 3, 1984. Girl with backpack, August 21, 1985. 2002. "Why not leave?" Jacob asked. "Some of us are born here. We can't. And if we talk about it, the bell rings louder." That night, Jacob didn't sleep. He stayed in the church again. Stupid, maybe, but he had no other shelter, and Miriam had warned that leaving at night was worse. "It watches the roads after sundown," she said. At 2:16 a.m., the bell rang again. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, a 4th. Jacob sat up fast. From the pew window, he saw the bell tower's shutters wide open, though no one had touched them. The sound echoed so violently through the church that the walls seemed to shake. He ran to the back, searching for a way up the tower. A narrow staircase spiraled into the dark. He climbed. At the top, dust choked the air. A massive iron bell hung on wooden beams. No rope, no mechanism. Yet it swung slowly. Then it stopped and turned toward him. The bell moved, twisting unnaturally, creaking metal shifting like bones. Jacob stumbled backward. A shape flickered beneath it. Tall, thin, no face, just emptiness wearing skin. It reached toward him with a crooked arm. Jacob blacked out. He woke on the floor of the church, morning sun pouring through shattered windows. Miriam stood over him. "You saw it," she whispered. Jacob nodded weakly. "It touched me. I felt cold inside my bones." "You've been marked twice now." She helped him up and led him outside. In the village square, people were gathered again. This time, 2 people were missing. The red-haired woman from yesterday, and the tall man who'd accused Jacob. Gone. Just gone. Their homes were open, untouched. No footprints, no blood, just silence. "I have to stop this," Jacob muttered. "You can't," Miriam said. "I have to try." She said nothing, but her eyes said goodbye. That night, Jacob prepared. He returned to the tower with matches, a can of gasoline he found in a shed, and one goal: burn the damn thing down. As he splashed fuel around the base of the bell, the air turned thick and wet. Fog rolled in through the tower windows. The bell began to swing. Toll. He lit the match. Toll. The flame flickered in the damp. Toll. He dropped it. The fire caught fast. Toll. The bell screamed louder than anything Jacob had ever heard. His ears bled. His vision shook. The figure appeared again, now closer, stretching from the smoke. Jacob ran, flames chasing him down the stairwell. He burst from the church as the tower collapsed behind him, crashing in a plume of black smoke and red ash. Then, silence. They don't speak after dark. It started with a wrong turn, like most horror stories. "My name's Dylan. Last October, a couple friends and I, Mason, Haley, and our friend Liza, went on a weekend camping trip in the Appalachians. We'd been doing this every fall since college, usually hitting up known trails, quiet places with no cell signal. This year, Mason decided to try a spot he found on a hiker's forum. The Sleeping Pines. A little off-grid, barely mapped. Sounded perfect. But sometime around 5 p.m., while trying to find the trailhead, Mason's phone lost GPS. We missed a turn. The sun dipped low. Then the road narrowed. Dirt now, not gravel. And just when we thought we'd hit a dead end, we saw a hand-painted sign. Merrow's End. 1 mile we hadn't heard of it. None of us had. Mason joked it sounded like something from a Stephen King novel. Haley said, "Well, we're not sleeping in the car again." So we drove on. Merrow's End looked like a postcard from the wrong century. It was tiny, maybe 24 homes nestled in a low valley. Old, mossy rooftops, a crooked general store, a well near the center of town. There were no streetlights, no signs of modern life. But what was most noticeable was how quiet it was. Even for a small village, the silence felt off. We parked in front of a 2-story boarding house with a hand-carved sign, "The Barnaby Inn, vacancies always." An older woman stepped out to greet us. Tall, thin silver hair in a tight bun. Her eyes were pale blue, almost gray. "You made it just in time," she said softly. We weren't sure what she meant. "I'm Mrs. Wren. I keep the inn," she said. "You'll want to be settled before dark." Haley raised an eyebrow. Why's that? Mrs. Wren smiled, but it didn't touch her eyes. It gets very still here after sundown. We respect the quiet. The rooms were old-fashioned but clean. No TVs, of course. One window each, looking out over the woods. As we settled in, Mrs. Wren returned with 4 steaming bowls of stew and some bread. "We don't have much in town, but you're welcome to eat," she said. "And remember, after sundown, no noise, no voices, not even whispers." We all looked at each other. "Why?" Mason asked, half laughing. "Is it like a tradition or something?" Her face darkened. "It's not a game. Keep your voices locked after dark, or they'll hear you." That shut us up. We asked more questions, but she just excused herself. Liza was the first to break the tension. "Okay, that's creepy as hell." I tried to laugh it off, but I couldn't shake the way Mrs. Wren's eyes had looked. Not afraid, not warning, resigned. We stayed up late, talking quietly, half joking about the silence curse. At 9:03 p.m., the power went out. We figured it was just an old grid. But then we noticed lights in every house across town went off at the exact same moment. No flickers, no delay, just darkness. Then the bells started. A low, deep toll from somewhere in the forest. Not from a church, not from any place we could see. Gong, 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 then silence. And then the scratching. It came from the window, long, slow scrapes, like claws over glass. None of us moved, not even Mason. The scratching stopped. Then we heard footsteps on the porch. Liza made a sound, a scared gasp. The door handle jiggled. Mason whispered, "Is that Mrs. Wren?" Before I could answer, a voice whispered back through the keyhole. Our own voices, repeating the words Mason had just said. We didn't sleep that night. When dawn finally broke, the lights flickered back on. Outside, the village was calm again. Birds chirped. Smoke curled from a few chimneys. We rushed downstairs. Mrs. Wren was already waiting in the dining room with tea and toast. "You didn't speak, did you?" she asked. We stared at her. "No," I said slowly. "But something mimicked us," she nodded solemnly. "That's how they hunt." She explained, Marrow's End had been founded in 1832, deep in the hills to escape persecution. But something was already in the woods, something older. "We call them the Hollow Folk," she said. They weren't ghosts, not exactly. They were echoes of people who'd broken the silence, distorted shadows who mimicked voices and knocked to be let in. "They need sound," she explained. "Once they hear you, they can wear your voice like clothing, and then they try to come in." Haley was shaking. "Why doesn't anyone leave?" Mrs. Wren just said, "Where would we go?" They follow sound. That afternoon, we decided to leave. We packed fast, apologized, and thanked Mrs. Wren. She didn't try to stop us, but the road we came in on, it wasn't there. Where the dirt road had been was now thick forest, not a trace of tire tracks or gravel. The GPS showed a flat gray screen. "We're trapped," Liza said, voice trembling. "No," Mason said. "There has to be another way." We tried cutting through the woods. That's when we heard it. Dylan's voice. My voice. "Guys, over here, I found something." But I hadn't said anything. Mason turned and started walking toward the voice. "Is that you?" I grabbed his arm. "I didn't say anything." He stopped cold. The voice called again, closer this time. "Come on, it's safe." Liza screamed. We ran back to the village, hearts hammering, the woods echoing with our voices. But none of us were speaking. That night, Mrs. Wren let us sleep in the basement, a stone cellar sealed with salt and thick wood beams. "You'll hear them again," she said. "Don't answer. Don't speak." Around 2 a.m., I heard my mom's voice through the cracks in the cellar door. She was calling me by my childhood nickname. No one in town knew it. Then I heard Haley whispering next to me. "Dylan, they sound real. What if she's actually—" I clamped my hand over her mouth. Outside, something scratched the cellar walls, then laughed in Mason's voice. Not a real laugh, an imitation of a laugh. Like someone who had only heard it once and was trying to copy it. The door creaked once, then silence. In the morning, we found a new note from Mrs. Wren. "One of you must stay. That's the only way the Holofolk allow the rest to leave." It wasn't signed. The message was clear. A trade. Mason volunteered first, said it was his idea to come here. Haley argued. Liza cried. I nearly volunteered myself. But Mason was already gone. Left the note, his knife, and a single line in his handwriting. "Don't speak after dark, ever." We were found the next day, walking along Route 19, dazed and covered in scratches. No village nearby, no signs of where we'd been. But in my pocket was a matchbook from the Barnaby Inn, and every night since, at exactly 9:03 p.m., my lights flicker once. Then I hear it. Gong. Gong. And someone, somewhere, whispers in my voice, "Come on, it's safe." The town of Ashbrook looked like something out of a painting. It was late summer when I moved there with my wife, Claire, and our 7-year-old daughter, Lily. After years of city life, the idea of a quiet country home, land, air, peace, sounded like the reset we desperately needed. We bought a large farmhouse on the edge of Ashbrook for almost nothing. 4 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a barn out back. Too good to be true. The realtor, an older man named Turner, had said the usual stuff. Tight-knit community, rich farming soil, and beautiful sunsets. But I remember one thing he said clearly as we signed the papers. "Just make sure you keep your lights off after dusk on the harvest moon." At the time, I thought it was a joke. Ashbrook was small, maybe 200 people, most of them older. No supermarkets, just a general store. One schoolhouse, a tiny white church. The townsfolk were polite, but distant. Friendly on the surface, handshakes, nods, but always watching. Especially when it came to Lily. "Such a bright little girl," one woman said, smiling too wide. Another commented, "Be sure to keep her close during harvest." Claire and I exchanged looks. "What's with everyone in harvest season?" she whispered later. We both laughed it off, but Lily wasn't sleeping well. Said she heard something scratching at her window. When I checked, there were streaks in the glass, like long, curved fingernail marks. Behind our house stretched endless farmland. We didn't plant anything, but somehow crops grew anyway. Thick stalks of corn, fat pumpkins, rows of blood-red tomatoes. One morning, I asked our neighbor, Mr. Dobson, about it. "Town's blessed soil," he said flatly. "Things grow fast, real fast." He was sharpening a scythe, even though he didn't appear to be farming anything. "Do they grow on their own?" I asked. He didn't look up. "You're not from here. You don't ask questions about the field. You just accept the yield." That night, I heard whispers coming from the corn. Not the wind, voices, low and rhythmic, like chanting. Claire said I was overtired. September 28th, the harvest moon. It rose over the trees like a burning eye, huge, blood-colored. That evening, every house in Ashbrook turned off its lights. We didn't. Not because we were brave, because we forgot. At 7:13 p.m., the power went out anyway. Then came the bells. 3 chimes from somewhere deep in the fields. Then silence, and then the footsteps. Slow, dragging, heavy. I looked through the upstairs window and saw a figure walking the dirt road. Tall, wearing a burlap sack over its head, stitched mouth and hollow eyes. A scarecrow come to life. In one hand, it carried a lantern. In the other, a child's shoe. We kept Lily in our bed that night, holding her between us. But around 2 a.m., I woke to find her gone. The front door was open. We ran outside, screaming her name. In the distance, past the edge of the crops, I saw a lantern swaying. The Scarecrow Man was walking toward the woods, and Lily was following him in a trance. We chased them, screaming. When I finally reached the tree line, they were gone. No footprints, no broken branches, just gone. The next morning, the townsfolk came to our porch with solemn faces. "She's part of the Yield now," one man said. Claire collapsed in tears. I grabbed a pitchfork and told them if they didn't bring her back. "She's not dead," someone said. "She's kept, for as long as the crops grow." I broke into the town's archive building that night. It was dusty, locked, and smelled like mold. But in the back office, I found the ledger, an old, weathered book titled Offerings to the Harvest Man. It listed names, dozens of them, going back over 100 years, one child every fall. Each year, some marked accepted, others rejected. Those had red ink beside them, labeled family interfered. I saw Lily's name, already written, accepted. Next to it, crops guaranteed for 7 years. And then, in even older handwriting, if no child is offered, he walks until one is found. I confronted Mr. Dobson the next day. He didn't argue. He told me the truth. Ashbrook had made a deal long ago, when the soil turned to rot, and a famine nearly wiped them out. One of the town elders had summoned something from the woods. It promised abundance in exchange for a child every harvest moon. A generation ago, someone refused. That year, 4 children were taken, including Dobson's sister. Since then, no one had resisted. "You stay here," he said. "You become part of it. You don't like it? Run." I couldn't leave without her. The next night, I walked into the field with a lantern and a knife. I followed the path the harvest man had taken, past the corn, past the scarecrows, until I reached the tree line. There, I found a stone arch covered in vines. Beyond it, a black tunnel of trees. The moment I stepped through, the world shifted. The air went heavy, cold. My breath steamed. And then I saw them. The taken. Children. Dozens of them, frozen in place, eyes closed, standing like statues in a circle. Lily was among them, her eyes fluttering as if in a dream. In the center stood the harvest man. He turned slowly to face me. I offered him a trade. "Take me instead. Let her go." No response. "Take me instead." Still nothing. Then I remembered what Dobson had said. It only listens to the land, to the deal. So I did the only thing I could think of. I burned the crops. I had brought a flask of lighter fluid and a match. I lit the nearest cornstalk and watched it catch like dry paper. In the other world, wherever I was, the harvest man screamed. The children began to stir. The fire burned hotter and hotter, and the woods started to collapse inward, trees curling like paper, ash raining like snow. I grabbed Lily and ran. We made it out. Lily was different for a while. Quiet. But she came back to herself, slowly. We left Ashbrook, the house, the fields, all of it. We heard 2 months later, a fire had destroyed most of the farmland. No one could explain it. And the crops, they never grew again. But sometimes, in the wind at dusk, I still hear 3 bells. And I wonder, if he can't take from Ashbrook, who will he come looking for next? If you enjoyed this nightmare, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.